To go by?
Right. Yes, Colin. What did you ask?
Or sorry, what do you like to go by?
Okay. So I just wanted to, discuss about the product development because I'm traveling across India. I'm just meeting the young minds, every now and then. Okay. So everybody, after the large language models in AI, everybody is talking about product, product, product. But it seems that they don't have a clear idea about what product is all about and how do we strategize about. Okay. And many students or many entrepreneur or budding entrepreneur, even they have work experience in some companies. They just come out of their comfort zone and they just starting something, but they don't have a clear vision on how do the product would be and how the market fit for for people to use. So that is why I'm very interested to know about, because you have such a wonderful experience in product development and management, and especially in machine learning. So that is why I just called for this meeting. So this is just
Got
not just about, yeah.
got
So
it,
why don't you
got it.
start about, with your introduction?
Yeah, for sure. My name's Colin Chong. I'm a senior product leader based out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I started out as a business analyst at a company that sold ringtones, games, things for cell phones that you might have downloaded before smartphones. And so I've been growing up building a lot of B2B SaaS products and productivity tools, then getting into e-commerce and marketplaces. I think you did an interview with Daniel Sachs not too long
Yes,
ago.
right.
Um, and he was the CEO at AppDirect. I was at AppDirect for a number of years. And then I switched my role to focus a little bit more on actually another side of the equation, more focused on loss prevention and brick and mortar retail situations, as opposed to a lot of what I'd been working on, which was digital commerce and a lot in the digital partnership space. So very different sort of transactional models, so to speak. And so now I'm actually working on a little bit more around tools that are built with AI. So it's an interesting conversation to have for sure. Product management is in a different space in and of itself. So sometimes it's a conversation around how is product management changing versus how is product management being applied to developing AI products.
Right. So in that situations, what I would like to ask you, uh, what is real product, and how do we strategize first of all? So how do we where the starting point would be? Because everybody we are coming. I mean, a few years ago, everyone was talking about service industry. And now the evolution of AI, evolution of agentic AI, evolution of large language models, NLP, and so on, and every one started to think of we need to develop a product. Is it necessary to have a product to come to the market or to showcase our talents? What do you see?
Well, I think you asked the right question to start with is what's the strategy? Because there's many different kinds of strategies. So is it necessary to start there? That's probably based around the strategy you begin with. And it'll differ company to company, right? Mission to mission, strategy to strategy. You might have someone that is working on a nonprofit, and their strategy isn't necessarily so much to build a product, it's to build systems, it's to build processes, it's to actually research. It's to help other organizations. Where I am in the region that I'm in, there's organizations that are research and almost part of educational organizations, and they do just that. And so that's a wonderful strategy for that kind of organization. But if your goal is to build something that's used by, a broad market that really demands the rigor of having a packaged product that's replicable, that you're trying to extract some sort of profit from, a product might make sense. So I would say the product has to serve that strategy and not the other way around. You're not building a product just to serve and figure out the strategy along the way necessarily.
Got it. So I can see a lot of products, web applications or mobile applications, even the B2B market, the business to business and business to customers, even, a lot of, the strategy around it. I can see, some of the products we couldn't, get to understand for that, making understand ourselves, we need a lot of training for that. Okay, so I hate those kind of products because we are just buying with the cost because we have. I mean, I'm in need of those kind of products, all right? But I just bought it and I'm just started using it. But it is if it is not user friendly, then where the product strategy would go, right?
Uh,
So how? Yeah. So how do you
It's
see this kind of? Yeah.
it's something that I don't think escapes any sort of product management and design. I think the worst execution is where
Uh,
you run into those exact same scenarios. And this doesn't like AI products aside, right?
right.
If you find a product that you find hard to use, you're less likely to use it. It's those kind of products that people generally feel like they're not productive around. Maybe someone bought it and it's now just part of their organization, or maybe it's just like an incumbent, right? There's many systems like this. I won't name them because I don't want to badmouth any systems.
Okay. Right. Right.
But everyone's probably dealt with them. Someone brought it in. It's a big legacy vendor. It's hard to use. It doesn't make them feel good when they're using it. It doesn't make them very productive. Or even and that's also true for many new products as well. They were just thrown together. Maybe it was an experiment. Maybe someone's just trying to build something to test some concepts, but they often miss the mark. And so with AI products, I think what you see now is like there's some established patterns. Like you can have GPTs, you can have things that seem like they're GPT like they're just sort of virtual assistants of some sort. And they're not easy to use because the outcomes are not necessarily well tuned, well defined. They don't meet your expectations because, if anything, many of the generative AI applications you might be thinking of are probabilistic. They haven't actually done enough testing, enough prompt engineering, enough guardrails, enough experience around it to actually be intuitive for the masses in many use cases.
Okay. So, during this, the season, I mean, this question is particularly about how do we pitch in with the right product? That is one. I mean, if I have, come across one idea, say for instance, I wanted to build a product on travel itinerary. Okay, I just wanted to go with the AI product development on only for travel. Okay, so this is an idea, and I'm just searching for market research and competitive analysis, and I have done all these things, and I'm just seeing I don't I will not be able to reinvent the wheel. Okay, that means I cannot have my own unique selling proposition. That is my USP. I couldn't, figure out where would I fit in. But I have, I wanted to do this kind of a product. So in those situations, how innovative skills and how innovative product approach, I can do this.
So let me make sure I understand the question
Okay.
because let me play that back. It sounds like you're looking at like any kind of problem. Let's say it's travel,
Mhm.
and you're trying to figure out what's maybe the way to think about incorporating AI into that problem space. Is that kind of the
Yes.
area
Yes.
that you're
Yeah.
trying to dig into?
Yeah. 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 That is what.
So. one thing, and I think this is sort of the theme of what I would say a lot of product managers, like probably even a year ago, we're seeing, and even now, is that they get asked to, or just think about like, how do I make this thing have an AI feature? And that mentality and that sort of framing from the onset is one that will probably not guide them in the most productive direction. That's where you get things like, well, what you just said. It's a frustrating experience. Why was it built this way? It doesn't make any sense, right? Um, what product managers or anyone that's looking at incorporating AI needs to start with is what are the things that AI in any various shades of capabilities are good at, right? Is it good at sorting? Is it good at generation? Is it good at whatever, right? And then think about the problem. Well, what part of the problem is really interesting for your customers, and how do those two things meet? So, when you think about travel, what's the hard thing about travel that you want to solve or that you see a problem and a gap in the world with? Maybe it's crunching data. Maybe it's figuring out what the pricing patterns are or the travel patterns are so that you can address some sort of opportunity and then match that up with the right AI technology, right? Um, and then figuring out how to bring that to the market in a way that's easy to adopt. So you have to have all those things together and not think about just how do I make AI work for, this industry. Really starting with always for product, always starting with the problem, and then lining that up with the right technology, and then thinking about that design aspect so that it's actually adoptable. And of course, you want to make sure that it makes sense for your business. Um,
Right.
and you talked about like the innovation here. There's so much room for innovation here, right? Because the application of and any set of AI technology in any of these spaces probably is going to be newer in one way, shape, or form. It might not be, um, there's a new chatbot in the space and it's the first chatbot in the space. Doesn't matter. But if it's a novel application in a way that people didn't expect in like a very specific vertical, we'll go with the travel example maybe. Like, wouldn't it be great if you had an assistant that would be able to always double check your travel plans, make sure they're viable. Always checked to make sure that you had the lowest price, the right seating, the everything that optimized for you without you having to go do all that legwork. Fantastic. Is that viable? Is that something that is going to be feasible given the technology that exists? Probably. Is that big enough market? That's where product managers, I think, are really going to have a lot of the work cut out because, again, that viability problem is always going to be there still.
Yeah, okay. So, in your experience, how do you see this product innovation or product management or the product strategy, delve, maybe after 5 years? This could be, with product managers or product management stuff. This could change the entire scenario of any kind of product product development. So, what do you see, after 5 years? What kind of a changes would be there in this product management stuff? What are the
Th
changes can happen?
I think we're starting to see that now. I'd actually like to get your perspective on that because I know you've been talking to quite a few individuals. But what I see a lot of is product management changing to empower product managers, and so everything from research to testing ideas to writing to being able to synthesize insights to prototyping. All these things are getting faster, and so the product management professionals that are able to adopt the tools, learn the processes, learn the methodologies, understand how they can be applied, will be much more effective product managers. Same thing for even like people managers, right? Being able to systemically start to measure the things that were perhaps harder to measure or harder to understand because the data was not necessarily easy to either attain, grok, whatever the case is. They'll be more effective. This often, I think, means that you have roles for product managers that are also quite different. Maybe if they started with, they have to do a lot of writing, they have to do a lot of project management, they have to do a lot of something. And those tasks are relatively mundane, right? Like maybe the systems can be automated. Maybe the systems can be more easily learned from and patterned against. And that's where an agent AI can do that instead of a product owner kind of role. That's where I think you start to see a lot of these shifts in roles from PMs being like task and prioritization to really being a lot deeper in the market, understanding and building closer to what the customer's needs are, testing ideas faster, and ultimately being a lot closer to either the engineering teams or business teams that they typically would collaborate towards.
Okay. So often I'm getting these kind of questions from anyone, if I, train on AML, is it necessary to, get a certification like a project, I mean, the PMP or any kind of a certification for, becoming project managers? Because, I'm just, I used to train 20 years of experience professionals or 15 years of, engineering professionals. They often asked, they often very, curious about the PMP certification. Once we get the certification, yes, I will be placed in any corporate companies, as a product manager or product, development team. So, do you really think that this kind of a certification will help them or add any value to them? Or, I mean, what is your perspective on this kind of a certifications, getting into this field?
It can be. So this is where, depending on the role in the organization you're looking for, you have to figure out if it's right for you. So, will it help you understand some concepts and will it apply some rigor in terms of your general knowledge base? Yeah. Is every employer going to look for that? No. And so if you have a dream employer in a dream role and you look at that job posting and it says, PMP is required or PMP is a major asset. Well, there's your answer. You don't have to like second guess
Yeah.
that. But if every role you look at never asks for it, they ask for every other sort of experience, qualification, whatever the case is, never asks for any sort of certification, maybe you don't bother. Maybe those are things that you approach learning in different ways, in different kinds of roles and different kinds of experiences. You can do maybe smaller certifications. So there's lots of options to learn, but I wouldn't say like the one certification sort of nails you down and allows you to get those jobs.
Okay, thank you. So, so in your experience, what are the major challenges you could have experienced in your product development so that, you figured out, it took longer time than you expected and you figured out just a, kind of a wow moment you got from, out of the struggle. Is there any kind of a challenges you got to know? I think definitely it would be. So do you have any kind of a challenges? In any of the product development?
Uh,
I think there will
Yes,
be, right?
it's a challenging role, and that's why I enjoy it so much. If it was like this
Right.
really easy, I could forget about it. Well, number one, it wouldn't really be that critical role for most organizations. But most of the challenges that made product management hard in the past several years are still quite present today, right? It's still very hard to, just like all organizations, be competitive. It's a continuous arms race everywhere you go. You build a particular feature and go after a certain market. If you're successful, guess what? You're going to have competitors. You're going to have to continue to build that strong customer entity. You're going to continue to do better research. You're going to continue to try to find ways to execute better. You're going to continue to find ways to become more commercialized and profitable for whatever your market you're seeing. So it is a never-ending battle. And that adds the element of some level of difficulty to it, right? If you think back to I don't know, let's say 7 years ago, and
Mhm.
crypto and Web3 really, really hot, right?
Right.
Um, all product managers probably turned an eye and went, I probably have to learn a little bit about that, right? Could think back like
Right.
another 10 years ago.
Right.
Maybe product managers were more waterfally, or maybe they're more entrepreneurial, and then they had to start figuring out, well, how do I manage larger agile teams as they went along. So now we're in this age of how do you become incredibly productive with all these different tools? How do you fight back in this age where now it's not just maybe more functional feature sets? You have to actually be quite a bit more technical to understand how do you manage all the data, all the pipelines, the user experience with some of these very novel features. And it feels like it's sort of this earlier age of certain features that are AI driven that does add another element to challenge. So the challenges are always there. They're just changing.
Right. So, how do you see? I mean, this question always in my mind because I develop one product and I'm just going for the market, and I'm just collecting the feedback, and often I see that a lot of challenges to incorporate the user feedbacks, right? So challenges in the sense I need to strategize, or I need to change the entire module while incorporating those feedback, and how are you managing this kind of stuff through machine learning or any other I mean, I'm just giving you a very vague idea, just take it for machine learning. So how do you incorporate this user feedback in your product development?
Yeah. It, I think it really depends on the kind of customers you have. So if you have a very small market and you have like a bunch of very large B2B customers,
Right.
their feedback might weight very heavily as opposed to broad sentiment analysis if you're working on maybe like a consumer product. But this is where product managers have to be mindful about how they collect their feedback, the quality of that feedback. If anything, now it's easier probably than ever to get some of those feedback. So you get tools like Gong, for example, where
Hmm.
maybe all your sales and account teams have direct contact with customers that you can now mine all this data for. Because previously you had to go and trust trust people when they told you about that feedback. And now
Right.
direct customer feedback, you have tools like Appendo or Userflow where maybe you have the ability to see that directly in the product through CSAT scores, NPS scores, product surveys, whatever the case is. And then you can use that in any different ways. If you're doing it in a way where it's just sort of numerical and you get a lot of responses, maybe that helps just to give you a sense of general satisfaction with some of these features, but maybe doesn't give you enough to be able to go, huh, what should I do with that? This is where I'd say you have that really nice blend of all this feedback to really start figuring out how do you start making sense of it and what do you do with it. The thing that I tend to gravitate towards is the kind of feedback that I care about for those kind of products, and really understand what that feedback should look like. So, for example, am I trying to understand like, does this thing have product market fit? Maybe I go and ask the Sean Ellis score question and figure out, is this something my customers really need to have? Or would they be extremely disappointed if this thing went away? As opposed to, usability feedback, right? Can you find the thing? And in those cases, the feedback that you might get might not necessarily be as good as the analytics feedback. It's not necessarily people raising their hand and offering that. It might be an observability factor as opposed to that. So, at the end of the day, you need to figure out what are the data inputs that are going to help inform your decisions to act accordingly to however you're planning out your product.
Hmm. Okay. So this is again a basic, the feedback I used to get. How do I become a product engineer or a product manager or product developer? So, I mean, everywhere, this question, we are dealing with giving some examples. Okay, this is how you have to think, and this is how you have to do, or this is how you have to execute, this is how you have to analyze the market, and then if you have an idea to fit the market or right niche, then you will be able to develop a product. But the question from the people around the world, or even I have this kind of questions. where the starting point of a particular idea, and then how do I become a product developer for that? Do I need to go through some of the product flow or the project flow when the project becomes a product? So these kind of questions, if you just throw a light on this, then it would be really great.
Uh, it's kind of an interesting one. I'm going to talk about the product management one, if anything, because I am a product
Right.
manager. Product engineers and product developers. I have a viewpoint on it, but I'm not going to tread into those waters.
Okay.
But for product managers, like if you have a product that you're managing, go ahead and call yourself a product manager. I don't think anyone should really be gatekeeping like titles or what they call
Right.
themselves.
Right. Right.
Um, and this is where, I mean, there's definitely some of that in the world. You become one just by managing a product, and what that product is, like that has a wide variability of scope, right? Some people are platform product managers. Some people are like internal tool product managers. Some people are working on products like consumer packaged goods. So there's a very big variety of product management, which is why you also don't have always the most straightforward answer. You can't go to necessarily just school for it and magically you become one of these things.
Right.
So this is where you fall into that category in many different ways, and so you'll get a lot of different perspectives on it. So I'd say just the first thing is find a product to manage and start working on building a successful business out of it, right? This is why you have lots of different routes to it. You could it from the technical side. You could start at it from the design perspective. You could start at it from more of a business management perspective. Ultimately, you're trying to make a viable product business. So this is where, however you can attack it, is a viable path for that. Um, if you're coming at it from like, let's say you're working in an organization and your experience is, I don't know, professional services, working for clients, building on their ideas. It's a very different, I'd say, kind of working method than having a product that you own and are responsible for the success of. So there are, different scenarios that get close, but you may not necessarily be directly responsible for those. I would say the closer that you are to owning a product that is replicable, that you own the market for, that you are responsible for the success for, the more of a product management skill set that you'll continue to develop over time.
Right. Thank you so much. Yeah, that is the question. Very. We don't have a straightforward responses. Okay, so this question again, everybody will be asking to me, and I will just manage to give examples. The question is, will because you are working as a senior director for product development or product management, and what do you see after the evolution of agentic AI or agents in AI processes and where the automation just give you the luxury of implementation of implementation of automation process. Do you see any kind of a job loss uh, after the evolution of this kind of AI? And do you see the positive side or do you see the negative side of in your first in your area, the product development area?
So I would say that you're going to see a lot of job transitions. So there are some things that agentic AI is going to be just so good at that it improves the productivity of many individuals, where it reduces the need for additional headcount. So maybe for a space where there might have been a need for a headcount, that headcount need no longer needs to exist. In which case, organizations might go, great, I really need actually investment in these areas. And so it might be more less of a net job loss as opposed to a transition towards other kinds of roles. This is where I do see, and I think about this quite a bit, particularly as it's become a rapid evolution for how good a lot of these AI systems and AI products have become. But I think there's a stronger and stronger premium on areas where creativity and human touch are absolutely irreplaceable, where there's no way a generative system is going to be able to manufacture the kind of delight, the kind of experiences that only a human can provide. And so these are the areas that I expect a lot more of that transition to occur. And I think it will still be a while yet before major decisions or a lot of decisions that really shouldn't be automated are I don't want to say replaced, but are handed off to some sort of AI agent.
Okay. So thank you so much. These are the questions I have. If you have any kind of a generic, you know, the discussion you have, you can just,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
right.
um, I'd love to do actually like, and I'm just thinking about ideas for you actually.
Okay.
Because there's so many questions that I think I would have loved to have been asked,
Okay.
but like many different ways that I think your audience could find value in like
Right.
question sets that are maybe more applicable to them in their different kind of roles. Like, what kind of audience are you trying to garner right now? Are you looking at like entry level professionals? Are you looking for like seniors developing in their role, like really general content? Like, what's your audience look like?
My audience is in from right from freshers until the more experienced professionals, more on AAML and AAML developers and data scientists and business analysts. So I'm covering zero to any kind of an experience. So these are all the audience, a wider audience I have, especially in
Got,
the AA space. Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Um, there's if anything, I think for product management.
Hmm.
I think a lot of sharing could be done in terms of like, what are the things that are, uh, pitfalls of people developing these features
Hmm.
or certain kinds of features over the last little while that would be interesting to talk about. Things like um, why have some of them been non-successful, right? And one thing that we haven't talked about is like, what's the cost of all these things?
Ah,
How many things have failed,
right. Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Um, one of the big discussions I think in the space is like, how do you price these things? Because, for example, if we have many features that now rely on, let's say, large language models, right? Compute on these things is very high, which means there's a cost. If we're basing this off third-party services, that's going to incur higher spends. Um, how do you start monetizing these things appropriately? I think these are things are all really early days, and I think a lot of organizations have not necessarily found the success that they're looking for. So I think there's a lot of good discussion on like what hasn't worked so far
Yeah. Yeah.
for a lot of organizations, and what seems to be interesting paths to start moving down. Um, but in talking about different AI features, I think it's also interesting to talk about like all the different kind of businesses at those different layers, right? Are you focused on building products for other platforms, other developers, other software companies? Are you building it for different kinds of use cases? I think this is where product managers of all different kind of varieties will have very different kind of problems that they're going to solve for.
Okay. So it's just very, very valuable addition to this conversation. So yeah, that is where we need to focus on how we have to be successful and what the cost is always kind of experience learned or maybe they whatever they learned in their development or in those lessons they have to implement or reinvent or re-implement, and there are so many things they have to initiate. I mean, while doing the execution of the new product development or anything, maybe the services or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great.
In the discussion around like becoming a product manager, particularly now,
Hmm.
there's so many things that I think are different between now and a few years ago
Right.
that I would want to see from like the fresher community where um, previously, for a product manager, you probably didn't have much of a portfolio. And it was harder to talk about your process, right?
Right.
Because your processes are probably largely baked in with the organization that you're with. Like if you're with, I don't know, Amazon or Google, like all your tools are like internal tools. You can't like tell people about those tools. You can't
Right.
carry them everywhere.
Mm.
And the products that you developed are hard to carry. Um, I think now more than ever, product managers can start building a lot more, can start showing and telling, talking about the kind of tools they use a lot more than they used to. And so it's a lot easier to see what sort of skill set a product manager has brought, the kind of things that they do and can work on. And that'll give you a better indication of how quickly they can get up to speed on certain kinds of work. So I think very similar to how designers very commonly have portfolios, I think product managers will slowly be edged into a space where they will have the ability to show off portfolios. And it's very similar to engineers, and a little less so since a lot of their work is contributory. But very similar to having like a GitHub page. I can imagine product managers having their own product pages.
Okay. So maybe just curious about, we just discussed, what is your day in and day out, the how you start your day in your, the work hours. What kind of an activities you will be doing in your product development?
Yeah, I might be unusual. Uh,
Right.
you can tell because it's like 10:30 p.m.
Mm.
My time. But it's also because I'm a new father, so I don't get a lot of sleep. But my day will start around maybe 7 or 8 a.m. Um, I'm always checking messages, always checking emails. There's a very big premium on product managers being responsive.
Mm.
So prioritize that and just understanding what's going on. Then I'll start working. I'll probably start checking through any critical messages, emails. I try to have my calendar portioned out and time boxed for all the major activities I need to get done, so they actually do get done. Then there's all these different kind of meetings throughout the day, and there's big variety of them. They might be with partners, customers, internal stakeholders. And then I think right now what's really important is still spending just a bit of time. So small slices on learning about the market, learning and building skill sets. So somewhere, maybe not every day, but at least every few days, trying something a little bit new. And then still having some time for, personal stuff. And then my nights get back to it. I might be researching, doing side projects, networking, whatever is going to be possible while my kid is asleep.
Right. It's interesting to know, getting to know about you. So, yeah, as of now, that's all. If we have any kind of a questions from our audience, even, I just meet people, maybe, we will have, I will come up with a different set of questions, maybe some other time, if you find time to meet again, right? So we'll keep on, whenever we find time, we'll just discuss about the product development because, the young minds and even, a lot of people have the blockage in their mindset of do I become this or can I do this or can I mean if I have this kind of an idea, will it become the market fit for this kind of an idea? So those kind of questions, we will deep dive. They don't have a clarity on those things because it has not been taught and it should not be, right? So they have to go and search a lot of things, stuff, and how the everyone's perspective. Once they have an idea, and then idea formation, the product, I mean the project flow, I mean the workflow or whatever it is, and then they will become, I mean, started working on the execution part of it, and how once it is becoming a product per se, the usable product, then they have to go and market it. And there are so many, the execution process as well as an employee and also for employer, right? So there are so many questions shouldn't fit within your confined time. Maybe in future we will discuss these kind of things. I mean, if you
Yeah.
have some other idea, maybe you can just throw a light right now. Otherwise, we can discuss at some other time.
Yeah. Yeah. I always like audience kind of questions. But or even panels and debates because everyone's got a different perspective. So
Right.
no, open to questions all the time.
Okay. So, anything else you wanted to?
No, no. But
Okay.
yeah, happy to have a follow-up if you've got anything more.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I'm very happy to host you today.
Cool.
Right.
All right. See
Thank you
ya.
so much. Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.